What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of DevTalks with your host Travian. In this episode, we're gonna be talking about Rivian and Volkswagen. So recently, they teamed up, and Rivian, I kind of like their kind of workflow. I do think they have a potential in the future to really be something as far as the electric vehicle market and EV market. So we're gonna see why they need each other. I heard a lot of different news about them both. They might be struggling in some areas, but I really was interested in what information they could possibly provide. So we're gonna go figure that out together and hopefully learn something new today. And without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps. It goes a long way. And please share it to your friends and family, especially if they're interested in the world of tech. And without further ado, let's dive in.
Once Once a much-hyped EV startup, Rivian faces a severe cash crunch. It's losing about $1.5 billion per quarter. Rivian lost between $30,000 and $43,000 on every truck it sold in the past 5 quarters.
There are potentially 1 or 2 programs away from potential bankruptcy.
In March 2024, Rivian announced it would pause a plan to build a $5 billion factory in Georgia. That's where it was supposed to produce its next generation of vehicles. Then, this happened.
Rivian announcing, along with Volkswagen, that Volkswagen will be investing $5 billion in Rivian.
The joint venture, which the two companies could establish as early as fall 2024, could be Rivian's saving grace. But it's a lot more than that.
It's revolutionary for VW.
I think that this deal ended up being really consequential for Volkswagen, but I think maybe even for the industry as a whole.
So, just off of this alone, we kind of seen this model before, especially with other tech companies. Like, look at OpenAI, right? They have all that deal with Microsoft. How is Microsoft getting any benefit from this? I feel like this is going to be the same boat, whereas Rivian, they're getting all this investment from another car company, and Volkswagen probably has some type of idea of what kind of returns they can get from Rivian back in return. So it's kind of just like how that's going to work with that kind of relationship to keep them afloat, keep them running, keeping them to be able to be more productive and get out stuff. Because with $5 billion investment, with how much bleeding they've been doing, it helps because they can probably get that Georgia plant up now, start making their new vehicles, get them out on the road, and all of that kind of business. So that's just my early predictions early on. We gonna go.
Rivian started out with high hopes. It was addressing a major hole in the EV market. The best-selling vehicles in the US are pickup trucks, and they generate huge profits. Tesla, the biggest EV maker, wasn't producing one, until recently, that is.
Rivian, I mean, say what you will about them financially, but it is a great brand, and they make beautiful products. It's actually the same designer that designed the Jeep kind of renaissance that happened in the past couple of decades, that went over to Rivian and made just a beautiful piece of art.
Rivian also proved it could make commercial trucks, most notably its fully electric Amazon delivery vans. Then, in 2021, it went public.
How much excitement there is around Rivian. We haven't seen this in a long time.
Rivian set to IPO this week at a valuation that could be as high as $65 billion.
When I've talked with executives in the auto industry, all of them say the same thing. This is the IPO to watch.
When Rivian IPO'd, it was met with a lot of fanfare. And that was right after the pandemic, when there was a lot of money chasing a lot of IPOs.
But things haven't turned out as planned. Shares have plummeted. Market cap shrank from $150 billion to about $16 billion by September 2024.
I think what happened was people kind of extrapolated what happened with Tesla, and they kind of did the same math. And they said, wow, Rivian's already ahead of where Tesla was at this point. And it was. But the difference is Tesla, when they started, were the only game in town. You had this EV slowdown happen, probably at kind of the worst possible time. Especially you're trying to sell very expensive vehicles Interest rates used to be really low when you had all the excitement.
At the end of the second quarter 2024, Rivian said it expected to be profitable by the fourth quarter. It still expects to lose $2.7 billion in adjusted earnings this year.
When they went public a couple of years ago, they had, I think, almost $19 billion in cash, and they've burned through probably about 75% of that at this point, which is just not great because they've been spending a lot of money on both on R&D, on new products, as well as the money they started spending on building a second factory. But their volumes were not enough to sustain that spend rate. And the vehicles that they were building already were costing way more than they could charge for them.
That's where the VW deal comes in handy. Apart from the much-needed cash, Rivian also gets the benefit of partnering with an established automaker.
Rivian is a drop in the bucket, right? Like if their wildest dreams come true, they're going to be selling 200,000+ units out of that factory in Illinois. They are way down on the totem pole in terms of getting favorable pricing from all of these different individual suppliers.
Volkswagen sells about 9 million vehicles around the world per year.
If you call those people up and you have Volkswagen standing behind you saying, this is a multi-million unit order, then that person picks the phone up and they give you favorable pricing, much more favorable pricing than what Rivian would be getting solo.
See, this is the thing. Rivian's gonna get a big boost out of it because Volkswagen's well known. They're gonna get all these extra benefits being tied to them, and I didn't even know how they fared compared to Tesla in the beginning. That's actually really interesting. How they're in a better spot than Tesla was originally by the time that they got there, but you also look at what was going on in the market at the time and why that was the case. But as they said also in the video, I feel like this is very self-explanatory on its own, that it doesn't need much more headway of voicing over this, but that is what Volkswagen is providing for them besides the cash. It's the notoriety and how well known they are, being able to get stuff done in that manner. My question now is, what is Volkswagen going to get out of it? And I think that's what's the next chapter. So let's see.
So if Volkswagen offers Rivian cash and bargaining clout, what is Rivian's offer? Despite its troubles, the way Rivian and companies like it design and build cars is fundamentally different from the way nearly every legacy automaker does. It comes down to 3 words: software-defined vehicle.
Volkswagen trying to really get into the software-defined vehicle space, having a very difficult time doing it.
Basically, as the name suggests, it is one that is more or less controlled through software, and this is key, software that can be updated throughout the life of the vehicle. Tesla pioneered this. It can diagnose problems on its cars, fix them, and even add new features, all remotely without having to touch the car. Famously, in 2018, the Tesla Model 3 received a low rating from Consumer Reports because it took an extremely long time to bring the vehicle to a complete stop. That's a serious safety concern. The company fixed the problem with a remote update and secured the group's recommendation. Auto industry analysts, including Consumer Reports' testing director, had never seen anything like that before. To that end, to compete in this new world, VW founded a software subsidiary in 2020 known as Cariad. It stands for Car IM Digital.
Like a lot of other automakers, they intended to do most of their software in-house. Well, at Volkswagen, like many other companies, that turned into a major disaster.
Software problems delayed several product launches from multiple brands, including highly profitable ones such as Porsche and Audi. And more importantly, it's been a costly initiative. Cariad reported €2.4 billion and €2.1 billion operating losses in 2023 and 2022, respectively. The struggles led to a management shakeup at VW Group, affecting even CEO Herbert Diess.
That is what ultimately part of what led to Mr. Diess having to leave the company. And now what they did was they took the Porsche brand leader, Oliver Blume, and now he's the co-CEO of both Porsche brand and the Volkswagen Group. I'm sure he's a very dynamic guy and a great leader, but he's probably has a lot of plates to balance, right? They're spinning.
I was not aware. That, does that mean does Volkswagen and Porsche work together? There's no way. Hold on a second. I was not aware of that. Their relationship. That is new facts right here. Volkswagen and Porsche have a reciprocal relationship as Volkswagen is the parent company of Porsche. Well, you learn new stuff every day. Wow. Okay. So that raises my question here. This can mean a few things, actually. One, the Porsche Taycan's been out for how long now? It's been over a year, 2 years. It's been a couple years at least. They're coming out with a new model now recently, and they already kind of have had that system updating thing in the Taycans, but Volkswagen went to Rivian because of how their process is, because they seemed like it was for Tesla to do this kind of stuff because they needed more help around it. And this is the aid that they're getting from Rivian. Or is Rivian going to help them better all the electric Porsches along with the electric Volkswagens at a more consumer rate? I'm very curious on how exactly that's going to all work out. I feel like I've known that before about Volkswagen and Porsche, but it just doesn't like. There's a lot of car companies who have relationships with each other that a lot of people don't really know. I know about Infiniti and Nissan because I drive Infiniti, but yeah, some companies, if you're not really into that company and driving those cars, you might not really realize some of that stuff. But that's crazy because I don't really see that many Volkswagens on the road in America, at least on the East Coast, at all. I see way more Porsches than I see any Volkswagens. Maybe that's a good thing for them because they're making money out of that. But hey, we asked to learn something new. We learned something new for sure, but we also get to know what Volkswagen gets out of this, and it might work for them.
And now to have to think about software in-house.
Since its launch troubles, Porsche said it would expand its relationship with Google for infotainment software. VW overhauled CARIAD's leadership in 2023, appointing a new CEO and board members, along with a new chief software officer from, guess where? Rivian. He's also ex-Tesla. All these troubles are despite the fact that VW, like every other legacy automaker, has been putting...
I did know about that guy who's ex-Tesla because it was him and another ex-Tesla person who made Rivian. Fun fact. I believe that's true. But yeah.
Software in cars since long before Tesla or Rivian existed. The first computer chip on a car was designed to regulate spark plug timing to save fuel on a 1977 Oldsmobile Toronado made by General Motors. But the way legacy automakers have integrated hardware and software for decades doesn't meet the needs of the moment. Upending the old ways has proven far more difficult for them than for the lean, nimble new companies established in the digital age.
They say, how come Tesla's not having this problem, right? How come the Chinese aren't having this problem? How come Rivian's not having this problem? One thing leads to another, and then they realize it's because the underlying architecture of how their vehicles are built are just so different. We can't change. We have to either change, which is super difficult, or try to piggyback off the work that companies like Rivian are doing.
They can stay laser focused, and they can sort of, play in a different space of new technology where Volkswagen has to play and say, we got bills every single month we got to pay. Rivian's losing $38,000, I forget what the number is, but $35,000 per car. And they're doing a victory lap because they're not losing $40,000 per car. Volkswagen can't say that. They can't say, oh, give us some time, shareholder. We're only losing $40,000 per car. But they can play by a different script. This is the insanity of this industry.
The automakers we know, VW, Ford, GM, Toyota, BMW, Hyundai, and even Tesla, rely on suppliers to provide them with parts. Since the days of the 77 Toronado, more and more pieces of the car have become embedded with chips and software, but one at a time.
If they wanted to add electronic stability control or massaging seats to a vehicle, they would go to their suppliers and say, okay, here's the feature we want to add. Or
If you have massaging seats in your car, I question a lot. Like, why getting a massage while driving? I mean, I see if you driving all day, but like, dang, yo, like getting massaging seats in the car, that's expensive.
suppliers might develop something that the automakers hadn't thought of and bring it to the automaker and say, hey, here's our new feature we developed. And so then the automakers will take a look at that and say, okay, we're going to buy this feature.
So the automaker gets a set of components, sensors, actuators, and what is basically a little computer called an electronic control unit, or ECU. The automaker just fits that into its vehicle. But the software on that computer is isolated to that one little device. It is written by the supplier, it isn't connected to the internet, and it doesn't talk to any of the other systems on the vehicle. Now picture there are somewhere between 70 and 100 of these ECUs in a single car. All of them have their own software, their own requirements. Automating a simple task like engaging a driver's profile with their preferred seat, climate, and entertainment settings could involve dozens of different ECUs.
From the very beginning of Rivian, we said we need to own the electronics in the vehicle. That allows us to own the way we think about the network architecture. And that importantly allows us to own not just the software stack, but allows us to own how the hardware within the vehicle evolves.
If you don't have dozens and dozens of black boxes.
This is why I love watching stuff like this, because this is the learning aspect, and sit here and learn about new stuff. Every time we drop a video, every time I make a video, I'm learning new things. I'm able to talk about it more. I didn't know about all the ECUs that are in a car and them being a little black box and everything. And that just shows the advantage as far as a technology standpoint that Tesla and Rivian have. And it also kind of gives you a question on how they're also a technology company because of the technologies that they own within their vehicles. And going beyond this, I recently did a reaction to an interview with Mark Zuckerberg, and he talked about how are they able to stay a technology company and go about that. These are little things like this that can keep you afloat, and you keep adding to the business in that aspect, and you find better ways to do business. And that way of thinking for Rivian and how Tesla was able to do it and own the technologies in their vehicles is a major plus. People probably don't realize it, but me just hearing about that, I realize how big of a plus that is, and that's actually kind of amazing in my eyes.
Boxes with static code written by somebody else. Instead, you have one centralized platform that houses all of the code that you yourself wrote. And the only way you can do that is if you are the one dictating what the underlying hardware looks like.
Instead of 70 to 100 different computers throughout the vehicle, Rivian's first generation vehicles had just 17. In their second generation, they reduced that number to 7.
That wouldn't have been possible in the time that we did it if we had to coordinate across 50, 60 different ECUs across a variety of tier 1 suppliers.
Rivian, like Tesla and basically every smartphone maker, is able to tweak software and hardware independently by making use of a layer called middleware. It can send updates to the vehicle software without changing out all the hardware or vice versa. That middleware layer is essential to a software-defined vehicle.
And that's where everybody's having a lot of challenges.
Rivian has added more than 500 features through over 30 over-the-air updates in the previous 2.5 years.
Even more importantly, what this deal does is it validates that new philosophy regarding what it is an automaker needs to have control of in-house. So it's a really consequential agreement.
So Volkswagen gets access to software and Rivian gets needed cash and a far larger stable partner. Because its software and hardware will be going into Volkswagen vehicles, Rivian now also has access to a far larger potential pool of vehicles from which it can collect data. Rivian's success in software, hardware, and network architecture do beg some in the industry to wonder, why bother making cars at all?
it is very difficult to make a car. You're heavily scrutinized. You have a product that has a liability side of it because it's moving people at high speeds. You have this idea of organizing supply bases, and you're trying to get all your material costs and everything going down logistically. If you're on the software side, you get to do that, and you can be brand agnostic. You don't have to sell it to only be on your product. You can sell it to many manufacturers out there.
After all, Rivian's current financial challenges mostly result from the capital expenditures needed to bring vehicles to market. To add to that, Volkswagen also plans to resurrect the old American.
And this is pretty much done where, like, it's a great video regardless, but that is exactly how you become that technology company right there. What they just said, they sell the technology to these other companies to help benefit them, and that's where their money's going to come from. You don't think Tesla does stuff like this? Tesla, they're just more successful, they sell more, and they get more capital out of it, and things, they just, sales are just bigger all around the board for different stuff, but they make a lot of their money off of the side technological stuff that they do, and that's why they're so successful. Rivian needs to take that same model, just how they'd have all these technologies that they did in their cars. This is the reason Volkswagen came to them. Who else is that's going to help? Porsche. You don't think that's a good relationship? That's an amazing relationship to have. Now that I think of it sitting here, that's an amazing relationship to an amazing customer to have invest in you and for you to provide things to so that you can make money and stay afloat. And as I said, they're only worried about, hey, we don't want to lose 40K a car. We want to lose 30. Hey, next year is going to be 25. And they're going to be happy about little stuff like that right now as the company's getting off the ground and go of it. Like, the car looks very beautiful for Rivian. I do believe they'll be successful. They have two people who used to work at Tesla. You have some kind of mindset. You have a rough idea of what you're going to be doing at that company, and it's just going to grow from there. So if you guys think the same, let me know in the comments. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all of that. See more videos coming out in the future. And without further ado, peace. See you guys next time.